We have been in pursuit of happiness for a long time. There's movies about it. Viktor Frankl wrote about it in his book called Man's Search for Meaning. Woody Allen said, when I'm in New York, I want to be in Europe. When I'm in Europe, I want to be in New York. That's the state we find ourselves in. So to solve this mystery of happiness, I'm going to give you 5 different experiences of happiness that I believe define happiness for different people. And hopefully you'll find a kernel of truth and use that to find the peace and joy you're seeking. So join me on this journey. The quest for happiness has been in place for time immemorial. We've heard stories of Gautama Siddhartha 2600 years ago, where he was looking for happiness in a way that he wanted to end suffering, and he went on his journey. We've listened to the sutras or the secrets of yoga from Patanjali, which was 5,000 years ago, about how to live a happy life. And today, in our contemporary times, there's a science of happiness, a whole field called positive psychology for the last 25 years that has promulgated in every university, in every country, in every nook and corner of the world, looking for what makes us happy. Definitions of happiness abound, models of happiness abound. Now, all of these models are using the concepts of psychology to help explain the coordinates of happiness, the precepts of happiness. And they get very scientific, but they have a lot of excellent wisdom in them, embedded in them. One other scientist who I have an incredible amount of respect for, she's an inspiration to me, has been for a very long time, is Sonja Lyubomirsky. Sonja is leading the charge on what is called the how of happiness. So let me read you a short paragraph from Sonja's book, also called The How of Happiness. And this particular paragraph is called Why Be Happy? Why should we put forth all this effort in order to be happier? In case anyone needed convincing, the scientific evidence reveals many compelling reasons to aspire for greater happiness and fulfillment. My collaborators, Ed Diener and Laura King, and I have documented a large and growing psychological literature showing that becoming happier doesn't just make you feel good. It turns out that happiness brings with it multiple fringe benefits. Compared with their less happy peers, happier people are more sociable and energetic, more charitable and cooperative, and better liked by others. Not surprisingly then, happier people are more likely to get married and to stay married and to have richer networks of friends and social support. Furthermore, contrary to Woody Allen's suggestion in Annie Hall that happy people are shallow and empty and have no interesting ideas and nothing interesting to say, they actually show more flexibility and ingenuity in their thinking and are more productive in their jobs. They're better leaders and negotiators and earn more money. They are more resilient in the face of hardship, have stronger immune systems, and are physically healthier. Happy people even live longer. So, no one knows the art of happiness better than the Japanese people who practice all kinds of different ways of living a healthy, happier life. We'll discuss that towards the end of this talk, something called Ikigai, the way of life in Japan. But what Sonja reveals is the scientific truth that is actually a reality. So as I read all kinds of literature, not only scientific but also spiritual, some holistic, some self-help, my understanding of happiness is that there's not one kind of happiness. Yes, there's 2 scientific ways happiness is classified, hedonistic and eudaimonic. We've discussed that in another chapter. In fact, Barbara Fredrickson, Sonja's friend and another researcher, preeminent scholar at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, has done research and shown the difference between eudaimonic and hedonistic happiness and what it does to our immune systems, our genetic composition of the immune system. But experientially, I think there are 5 happinesses. And yes, happinesses is a correct word. So let me walk you through what I believe are those 5 happinesses. I'm going to start from the most dangerous to the most sublime. The first one that I believe is the most dangerous is what I call borrowed or adopted happiness. Now, this is where one is completely lost. We don't really know who we are. We don't know what we want. And we are just moving from one post to another in search of what we call happiness. And whatever comes our way, we borrow it for a little time, we adopt it for a bit, and then we find that doesn't give us happiness, and we move on to something next. But we are so immersed in that darkness that we don't even know what it is we want to be happy. And we simply are living at a superficial level and borrowing happiness from different sources that is not our own. And it is not a surprise that very quickly you find no use of that and you go back and return it. Just like a borrowed book from a library. You read it, you digest it, and you go return it back. A lot of these books, in terms of these happiness that we are borrowing, are read and then forgotten quickly. That, to me, is perhaps the biggest loss of soul. That is perhaps the most dangerous way of defining happiness, because none of it is really you. It's all borrowed. It doesn't reflect any of your values, doesn't reflect any of your authenticity. The next level is what I call adapted happiness. Adapted happiness is where, I guess the best way to explain it is, if you watch a movie that has been adapted from a novel or a book, it's an adaptation of something that someone else wrote. So in this particular instance, you are actually adapting someone else's definition of happiness and bringing it into your life for a fairly long period of time. Let me give you an example. So when I graduated high school, I wanted to be a doctor. Specifically, I wanted to be a cardiologist. I loved the anatomy of the heart. I loved every aspect of biology, human anatomy, and everyone knew that I was going to be a doctor. Then we get a phone call at my house from my uncle who lived in Canada. I really loved this uncle of mine. He lived a very fun life, at least what it appeared like. He spent most of his years in Europe and then moved to Canada. And he was my dad's younger brother. So phone calls back then in the early 80s were very expensive. It was a short call. So he spoke to my father, and my father said to him, "So, you know, Arun is going to graduate this year. What do you think he should do? He wants to be a doctor." And he said to my dad, "Oh, tell him he doesn't need to study for 8 or 10 years. He should just go to hotel school and he's going to have a fun life. Look, I've had a great life, so that's what he should do." Guess what? I adapted his definition of what was going to give me happiness and ran with it. Now, the other reason that I didn't tell you is he mentioned the girls are a lot more attractive in hotel school too. So, you know, when you're 18, that has a huge influence on your decision. So, regardless, for a good 10 years, I spent my time in hotels. Now, it was a fun time. It was a good experience. I learned a lot. It actually created a very strong foundation for my next career, which is what I currently do, and that is I'm a money doctor. I'm in financial services. So I adapted someone else's definition of what was going to give me happiness and turned it into my own. The third is imposed. I'm going to give you the story of Paulo Coelho to explain to you what imposed happiness means. So Paulo Coelho, when he was 16 or 17, was sent to the mental asylum 3 years in a row. I believe it was in 1967, 68, and 69. This is from his blog. The reason he was sent to an asylum by his parents is because they thought he was psychotic, he was lonesome, he was solitary, he was just not like a normal 17-year-old. Well, that is a normal 17-year-old. I have 2 daughters who've gone through that phase. But regardless, they wanted him to be something he was not. He wanted to be a writer. And as he grew out of that phase, we all know what Paulo Coelho became. I mean, he is the most prolific Portuguese writer from Brazil. Books like The Alchemist or On the Banks of River Piedra I Wept, or Veronica, I Want to Die. All of those books that he wrote are about his passion that was inside. But his parents wanted to impose on him what they thought was a way to live. And many of us succumbed to that. The place I come from, India, there are only 3 careers that are meaningful in India: a doctor, an engineer, or a chartered accountant, a CPA, as they're called in India. That's it. Nothing else is worth the money. Now, a lot is changing now in India, but that was the environment in which I grew up. Now, our parents are very well-meaning. They are our caregivers. They want the best for us. But one of the things they don't realize is that we came from them, but we don't belong to them. And that sense of control, where they want to make sure that you're happy and you don't hurt and you're not unhappy and you don't suffer, turns into this imposition of the definition of happiness. And that becomes a challenging aspect of our life as we move forward, because we lose our identity. We forget who we are. Many of us are doctors when we wanted to be painters. Many of us are attorneys when we want to be photographers. Many of us are dancers when we want to be a cardiologist. Some of us are financial advisors who wanted to be cardiologists too. So that's the dilemma in this world of this imposed happiness. So the 4th kind of happiness is where things start to get better. I call it the personal happiness, or the happiness of the self, if you were to use the Buddhist concept of self and no self. Again, I want to give you a beautiful story that is written in the book Element by Sir Ken Robinson. His definition of what is an element is when your passion and talent meet, that's when you get in your element. And he gives this story of Gillian Lynn. Now, Gillian Lynn was an 8-year-old young girl in the 1930s, and she was incredibly fidgety. She did not focus well in school, in class. She created a lot of trouble. She looked out the window. She troubled kids. And finally, the teachers sent a letter to her mother and said that your daughter seems to have problems, and we are concerned that she may need to be sent to a special school. Now, as Sir Ken Robinson says, ADHD had not yet been invented at that time, so she would have been labeled ADHD and given some sort of medication to calm her down. But her mother got real concerned and took her to a psychotherapist. They had a deep conversation, and Gillian Lynn sat with her hands under her legs so she wouldn't be fidgety. She tried to be at her best behavior. Her mother had dressed up well, and she had put her hair in a nice ponytail, so she looked composed. The psychotherapist spent some time talking to the mother and then walked over to Gillian Lynn and said, "My dear young lady, I've spoken to your mother. We have to leave the room for a little bit, so you're going to be on your own." And as he left, he intentionally turned on the radio. And he stepped outside at an angle from a window where they could see inside, but Gillian couldn't see outside. He said to Gillian's mom, "Now just stand here and watch what happens, what she does while we are out here." Gillian Lynn, whose feet didn't even touch the floor from the sofa where she sat, got off the sofa and started dancing. The psychotherapist said to Gillian's mom, "Mrs. Lynn, your daughter is not sick. She's a dancer. Take her to a dance school." Gillian Lynn, those of you who don't know her, is the choreographer, the world-famous choreographer of Cats and Phantom of the Opera. She went on to dance for the Royal Ballet, and then Andrew Lloyd Webber found her, and the rest is history. This is where the self expressed itself, and she found the happiness she was looking for. Passion and talent coming together to express what you are truly inside. Imagine if Gillian Lynn was born today, in this day and age where ADHD had been invented, whether or not she would have that career is truly a question, a huge question mark. So this happiness of the self is incredibly important, but there is one level above that, the fifth level of happiness, that I believe is the most powerful. This is the sublime happiness, and that is universal happiness, the happiness of the no self, as the Buddhists would call it. Let me take a moment to explain that. This is where the source of happiness is not inside you, it's outside of the universe. And I'm going to use the book of Thich Nhat Hanh that I read some time ago called Living Buddha, Living Christ as my inspiration to explain this to you. So in the Buddhist concept, there are 4 human conditions that are necessary for you to walk on the path of enlightenment. The first one is called Karuna, the name by which our organization has been created, which is this compassionate desire to remove suffering from others. Now, please note that none of these definitions are internally focused. They are outwardly focused. They are universally focused. So when you remove suffering from someone else, the amount of peace you get and the amount of happiness you get is indescribable. The second part of that human condition is called metta. Metta is the other side of compassion, which is loving kindness, amity, thoughtfulness that really involves you giving happiness to someone. The best example I can give you is if you give a gift to someone, a thoughtful gift to someone, and you see happiness radiating out of them, how do you feel? You feel just as happy or happier than the person who's receiving the gift. So loving kindness and giving gift to someone else is the second human condition. The third is called Mudita. Mudita means sympathetic joy or being happy in the happiness of others. The best way to explain that is the happiness of a parent in seeing their child happy. I have 2 daughters, and nothing gives me more happiness when they are happy. And that starts from the very, very beginning of birth, when the first time the baby smiles at the parent. And you know, the opposite is true too. If they get hurt or if they are in pain, you feel the same pain. But the point is, it is coming from an outside source. It's not coming from inside you. That's mudita, or sympathetic joy. And then the fourth human condition, before you get to walk on this path of enlightenment, is called upeksha. Upeksha means equanimity or unattachment to the worldly things, but being in a place where everything seems the same to you. Justice and equality would fall under upeksha. All of these 4 human conditions, Karuna, metta, mudita, and upeksha, are outwardly focused. Now take the 10 commandments. If you really read each one of them, none of them is about what's inside you. It's all about the society, about how you deal with neighbors and friends and with God. It's not about what's inside. So the 5th form of happiness is this universal happiness of what the Buddhists would call the no self, where the ego dissolves, where all you're looking for is the happiness of others outside of you. So the best way to operationalize this way of living, to find that deep happiness inside you, is partly how you live and partly how you treat others. And the best way to explain that is through the concept, the Japanese concept called Ikigai. It's a wonderful book also called Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. People have wondered why the Japanese people live so long. In fact, in Okinawa, which is one of the blue zones, we have some of the longest living Japanese in the world. And beyond that, there is a question around not just the fact that they live long, but they live happily. What is the secret to their happiness? And this entire concept, Ikigai, written by Hector Garcia and Francesc Miralles, I may have mispronounced that name, so I apologize, but 2 wonderful authors who've written many other books on a variety of different very important concepts. What came alive for me is when I saw the diagram that they presented on what Ikigai really means and how to live your life. So I'm going to try to attempt to draw that for you real quick so you can take some practical tips home with you. And then at the end, we will give you a prompt of what are the practices to bring Ikigai in your life and to bring the 4 concepts of universal happiness also in your life. So here it is on a flip chart. And forgive my drawing, I'm going to try and attempt to draw some circles. So the way Japanese people live in this concept called Ikigai, explained in the book of like name, the diagram shown in that book is incredibly elegant. I want to share that with you on how the concept of Ikigai plays out in real life. 4 circles. Let's see if I can do justice to it. Not bad. The way they explain it is, this is what you love to do. This is what you're good at. Here, this circle represents what you get paid for. And this part represents what the world needs. So you love, you're good at, and you get paid. So 3 are you, 1 is the world. The intersection of each one of these 4 circles represents something powerful about Ikigai. So something that you love and that you're good at is your passion. Something that you're good at and you get paid for is your profession. Something that you get paid for and the world needs is a vocation. And something that the world needs and you love is the mission. In the heart of this all, right here, at the intersection of all of this, is Ikigai. This is where happiness resides for the Japanese people, in this very simple concept of staying busy, which is what Ikigai really means, that every single day you stay busy with what makes you happy. There is no word for retirement in the Japanese community, the Japanese language. But when you spend your days loving what you do and what you're good at and what the world needs, but if you get paid for it, all the better, that is what represents Ikigai. Now, if I was to make this a little bit more practical for you, right here, the things that are internally focused are here. And what's outwardly focused is out here. So it's the intersection of what's internally good in you, the best of you, that actually creates a better world on the outside, is what brings the Japanese people happiness. Such a simple concept, such an elegant way to describe it, and it's not just about me and the world, it's all of it together. That to me is very powerful in understanding where happiness can reside. Now let's go into the acronym HAPPY, so I can describe to you what I think are some of the easiest ways, practical ways, embedded in science and ancient wisdom that can help you get to that place, that island we call happiness, the pursuit of which all of us are after. So the acronym I want to give you is HAPPY. H for humor. People in India practice laughter yoga. Laughter is considered to be the best medicine. It releases a ton of good stuff in your blood that makes you feel good about yourself. Laughter from your belly, real laughter, and humor, bring that back in your life, scientifically shown as one of the ways that can make you happy. The A of happiness is awareness. Being aware of who you are as a person and what are your values, what is it that truly will make you happy in life, not necessarily the imposed happiness or the adapted happiness, but understanding how you relate to the rest of the world, how you relate to others, more importantly, how do you relate to yourself, and perhaps how do you relate to something larger than yourself. That awareness will lead you also on the path to exercise what brings you happiness. The first P is purpose. Now, finding purpose and meaning is not easy to do. And what I just described in this concept of Ikigai will help you find that purpose. It is a patient process. It takes time. It is one of the hardest questions we ask ourselves. Sometimes it takes us decades to get there. But the quest for purpose and living a meaningful life, and that purpose can shift too in your life. Today, your purpose could be just taking care of your children. Tomorrow, the purpose could be doing something really, really amazing at work, that you're developing something. Or your purpose could be out there in a charity, serving those who don't have what they need. That's the first P of happy. The second P of happy is passion. Passion, as you saw from the diagram in Ikigai, is not only important from the Japanese style of life, but Sir Ken Robinson has written about passion and talent coming together. And that is really the question you ask yourself and say, what puts me in an amazing mood and lifts my soul and spirit? And you can find passion by doing something like a signature strength survey at viacharacter.org. We've discussed this in many other episodes before. But identifying what lifts your mood and gets you excited is not that difficult to do, especially if you notice and you're aware of what gets you there. Finally, the Y is young at heart. If you think about all of the people in Japan, even though they may be 107 years old, an average Japanese born in 2017 is expected to have a lifespan of 107 years. How do they do that? You know, the way that this book describes the Japanese life is that they truly enjoy every moment and stay young with it. They laugh at the smallest things, they laugh at their own mistakes, and they really are young at heart. And being young at heart doesn't mean that you have to be silly, it just means being present. So if you think about a child who's the youngest at heart, that child is always immersed in the present. Laughing, crying, eating, walking, singing, dancing, whatever it is, that is young at heart. So that's the definition of happy. And before you go, one of the things that I want to mention to you that's really important is the secret of happiness is also in the first precept of Karuna. Become involved with Karuna. There are 5 ways you can do that. They're on our website, accesskaruna.com. You would find that this movement of compassion will bring you immense joy. And I say that from personal experience, so just give it a try. Help us subscribe to this channel, spread the word, and join us in this movement to unleash a wave of compassion so we can make this world a happier place to live. Thank you.